He is currently appointed as an assistant professor in the area of business policy and strategy at Indian Institute of Management, that is IIM Raipur, India. He completed his PhD in strategic management from Indian Institute of Management, Calcutta, and he has also worked as a research associate at the Thomas Smidenis Center for Family Enterprise, which is at Indian School of Business, that is ISB, Hyderabad. And he also has around 9 years of industry experience working as IT consultant in India and US before starting his journey as an assistant professor. His research and teaching interests are in the area of strategic management, corporate sustainability, and family business. In today's episode, let us learn more about Dr. Shantanu Badra's journey in becoming an assistant professor at Indian Institute of Management and also get his insights on management research and teaching as a career. Interesting, isn't it? Hello, hi there. Welcome to the Guiding Voice podcast series, The Guiding Voice for a Better Future. This podcast is to help professional students, IT employees, and entrepreneurs to shape their careers. Dear listeners, in every episode, we interact with industry experts or thought leaders or academicians or coaches across the globe to drive some insightful conversations that will help each one of you learn wonderful things. Also, we share an interesting trivia or a fun fact about the IT world or technology towards the end. So stay tuned till the end. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is your host Naveen Samala, and I have about 18 years of rich and diverse IT industry work experience. And today we are going to discuss a topic: management research and teaching as a career. And we are pleased to have Dr. Shantanu, part of our TGV's journey in shaping the careers and lives of millions across the globe. Dr. Shantanu, welcome to our show.
Thank you, Mr. Naveen. It's nice to be here in your show, and I'm very glad to be interacting with you. Thank you so much again.
Pleasure is mine. If you are okay, let's get started.
Sure. Yeah, let's get started.
Perfect. So, Shantanu, here comes my very first question. Can we briefly talk about your career journey and top three key attributes that contributed to your current position? And before that, I'll make a disclaimer. In general, a person like me who has been in the IT industry for 18 years and all, it is a rare thought wherein I wanted to jump into academics, but you took that plunge. So probably you can highlight those.
Yeah, sure. For me, it was not a very difficult decision to come to PhD, but let me start with my, early education and the journey, through different colleges. So I come from a middle class family. So my hometown is in Barakpur, which is a town near Kolkata, right, in West Bengal. And I did my schooling in Ramkrishna Vivekananda Mission Vidya Bhavan in Barakpur. So class 1 to 10. And then my 11 and 12 in RKM VC College. That's also Ramkrishna Mission Vivekananda Centenary College, which is in Rohda. It's near Barakpur. It's another small town again. So after my 12th, I appeared for engineering and medical both. I got selected into both in the state joint entrance examination, but I chose engineering. So there is also one career dilemma that I had at that point. My parents wanted to me pursue medical, but I chose engineering. Some thoughts are there because I liked mathematics, physics, this kind of subjects more than biology. That time we didn't have much understanding about what is the career as a doctor or career as an engineer. We just choose about our subjects, what we like, right? So that was the decision, and I joined engineering in Jadavpur University in Kolkata. I joined IT engineering, information technology. And I passed my BE degree in 2004. So then I joined TCS as an engineer. I actually, was loyal to the company. So I, in IT industry, it's very rare that you are in a company for almost a decade. So I spent almost 9 years in TCS and on and off. I was also in on-site location in the US for around 4 years. So that helped me grow as a engineer, as a person, all that things. And then I took the plunge that I need to go to academics and do my PhD. So I didn't do any master's degree as such because it is not required if you have a 4 years engineering degree. And then I applied to IIMs. Again, that interesting thing is that why not a PhD in engineering? So many people think of doing PhD in engineering versus management. And my thought process was that, so I had this almost a decade career in organization. So I also understood the processes, the organizational culture, etc., which is very much required in management research and teaching, right? And as you understand, in a normal IT Indian career, this very geeky kind of engineering is kind of lost. It's mostly process oriented environment, right? So I preferred management as a research career, and I also like that softer aspect of this management career, right? So I chose IIM Calcutta as an institute because it's, again, I feel that the location is also important. When you go for PhD, getting a location, I mean, the institute where it is located is close to my hometown, and it's a good institute. It's not no average institute. So I got selected, and I did my PhD, and here I am. So that is Nissam, my entire journey. And again, you asked me about 3 attributes, right? So what I would say that from my childhood, that respect for teachers. I mean, I would say that is one key attribute that I learned from my parents maybe, and looked at all the inspiring teachers in my whole career. So the respect for teachers mean that I always gave attention to the classes. So that is one thing that I had this inherent in me, or maybe socially it was inculcated, but that is one important point that I want to make sure that helped me a lot. Even in engineering courses or even PhD courses, I never thought that okay, I learn myself or do it back home. I always wanted to go to the classes and attend those classes very diligently. So that helped me. Second thing I would say that this incremental growth. When I never thought that I will come to this point when I was doing my schooling or even college days. So it always helps me to grow incrementally. I mean, you understand that, right? That I took that one step at a time. That okay, I was doing good in studies, then I chose a good college, then chose engineering. Again, Jadavpur University is a renowned college. And again, when I wanted to do PhD, I didn't do for any college. So I chose IIM Calcutta. So that way, this progressive growth helped me, that I can say. And third thing, it's again, I will say it's not in my control. It's basically privilege. I mean, when I come to this stage, and when we were in the schools, we didn't think about much that okay, it looked very normal that we are getting good education, getting teachers, getting all the resources from my parents. But when I am at this position and I see the whole India and the underprivileged children and the societies, etc., then I feel grateful to this privilege that I have. That I, even if I'm come from a middle class family, but they could afford me to go to good schools, right? And always as a parents, I always say that my parents always valued education. So that also I take as a privilege that it doesn't happen for everyone. So that is the third thing. It's not in my control, but it helped me a lot.
Wonderful. I think you are very humble. I can make it out. So first of all, I think you have to be proud that you are part of this Ramakrishna mission, which people can dream of, and getting imbibed with Vivekananda's principles and Ramakrishna Paramahamsa's principles.
Absolutely.
And all is something really great.
Absolutely.
And 3 things that you mentioned, I would like to sum it up essentially for the professional students and those young entrepreneurs, right? I think this is going to help not only them, but also for the kids around, right? Maybe we'll have to have them focus on respecting for teachers and attending the classes diligently and regularly, because that is going to have a long lasting impact. And second aspect you mentioned is focusing on incremental growth. Maybe take some small steps with a bigger impact that is clearly visible in your career path. And third one, like you have been very humble mentioning that you got access to something which not many people have.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a privileged part of it. And thank you for sharing so candidly. Now, you also mentioned about your PhD, like you did your engineering and then 9 years you worked with TCS. And after that, you got into this academic side. And it was a direct course, right? Not, you didn't do your master's as you mentioned. So can you shed some light about your PhD journey? What worked well, what didn't work well?
Yeah, right. So as I mentioned, that plunge into PhD was not that difficult for me. I mean, as you said, that many of the engineers or other professionals, when they have this much of job experience, they always find it difficult. Even more difficult when they have families, right? When I actually joined PhD, I was still a bachelor. I married towards the end of my PhD career, but those kind of responsibilities actually hindered that decision making. But for me, it was not that difficult, that because as I said, that my parents always inspired me that you have to go for higher education and build your own identity. So that identity part was always in me, that being a average engineer is one thing. Okay, I was earning good, but still being a professor, teaching people, teaching students, and doing research, it gives me more different kind of identity in the society. So that always inspired me. And then when I returned from my on-site in US in 2012, then I was kind of sorted out that okay, I want to take a plunge and go for higher studies. And another thing helped me to take this decision was that my record as a student. So I was good at studies. I was doing good in schools and colleges. So that also kind of gives you confidence that okay, you'll do good in academic career. So that was kind of easier decision for me. I know, but many of my friends always call me that they wanted to take this kind of decision, but that end point, I see that they hold them towards that existing path, right? Now, when I joined IIM Calcutta, so I didn't have much understanding about how the life will be in a PhD career, right? I knew that it's a very rigorous program, and it took me at least 7 years. So again, I should not give any kind of wrong message that it takes so long time or what you will do, but it is actually very dynamic program. So it's not 7 years for everyone. It depends on your research work. It depends upon the rigor of the study, what you are pursuing, kind of data you are getting. But it takes, you can say, average 5 to 7 years. And then what I will say that I enjoyed the journey a lot. If after the other part of this PhD journey, I can say that I enjoyed a lot. It's not about learning the subject itself, but as a person, you grow a lot. Because I feel that everyone has to be a researcher in their own life. It's not about only researching your own subject, like in management or engineering, but when you search a product, when you buy a product, right? When you look for a relationship, you research, right? You try to get more information, you try to evaluate the information. So that perspective of research, how research can go wrong, those kind of learnings are also there in PhD. So as a student, I learned a lot. Then, of course, my guide, Professor Shogoto Ray, I mean, he is a kind of, again, inspiring personality. I learned a lot from him, how to aspire in life, how to evaluate knowledge, right? So that is a very interesting part. And then the campus life. I mean, I must say that IIM Calcutta as a campus is very beautiful campus. I stayed most of the time in campus, though my hometown is near, but I stayed most of the time on campus. I make good friends. I mean, we are having very enjoyable times. Of course, writing the thesis is a rigorous task. So once you love the process of learning, okay, it's about loving the process of learning. I mean, as I can simply say that if you love process of learning, you will enjoy the PhD journey. And then going to conferences. So IIM Calcutta gives you funding to go to conferences. So I attended 2 international conferences in the US and many conferences in India also. So that's all. I mean, it's a very enjoyable journey. You learn a lot. You become more humble. As you were saying, I'm humble because of the PhD more maybe. Because once you go for a PhD kind of course, you know that you know less. So knowing that you know less is one of the value for PhD. That the knowledge we get from in daily magazines, newspapers can be deconstructed in various ways. So as a common people, we used to get whatever news is coming or knowledge is coming, it's okay, it's the truth. But it's not so. When you go for challenging the truth, when you see how the research is done, the kind of mistakes can be there, the biases can be there, then you understand that, okay, you have to do some kind of cross checks whenever whatever knowledge you are getting or information is getting. So that's another part. So that is what I will say that the PhD journey I enjoyed.
It's as if the scenes are rolling in my eyes, and you explained so beautifully. And one thing that stuck my mind out of this conversation is knowing that you know less. There is a saying like knowing what you don't know, right? It is a big boon. Probably, yeah. Again, you have been very candid enough in terms of why you are so humble. And one other thought, especially from the researchers part of it, right? Like you said, it's more about you will learn how to diligently perform this research, evaluate multiple opportunities, so on and so forth. I think that was very insightful. So now, can we talk a little bit about what kind of topics do we find when someone is aspiring to get into this management research?
Yeah, right. As you might know that in management, there are different sub areas, right? So for example, there's marketing, there is finance, there's HR, there is operations, then IT, MIS also, they call it MIS, Management Information Systems, and there is strategic management, which I have specialized in. So these are sub areas, and I can give a little bit of idea about each area, but let me start with the area that I am more comfortable with, I'm researching in strategic management. So what we talk about is basically identifying a puzzle. So any research start with identifying a puzzle because you are an investigator, right? You are like a detective. You want to understand the social phenomena. So it's a social science, but focused on management or businesses, you can say. So the kind of puzzles, I can simply say that in strategic management, we start with this very interesting question. There are so many firms, right? So many organizations, so many corporates, companies, but they are performing differently. Performing means somebody is going very good at profits. Some are very good at growth. Okay. Some are very good at managing customers. So their performance metrics are different and they're performing differently. So this variance, this performance variance, why is it different? So it's very simple question that why some firms are failing, why some firms are so successful, why Apple, Facebook are so successful, Google is so successful, why say Vodafone Idea is failing, or why the two brothers in Reliance, right, the Mukesh Ambani, Anil Ambani, why they are performing differently even though they had, inherited the same wealth almost. So these kind of questions are the crux of strategic management, that why firms differ in terms of performance, in terms of their behavior. So this is a strategic management part. And then we gather data. Data gathering can be secondary data. That means we say gather their financial data, their accounting data, etc. Or you can do primary data research, right? That means you go and talk to the people, you talk to the management, you talk to different employees, and you talk to other stakeholders, and then get a qualitative kind of understanding why these kind of differences are there. And then let's come to marketing. Then again, marketing topics like how to market a product well, then why some marketing approaches fail, why some succeed. So this kind of, again, similarities you can see. In finance, then again, what are the different portfolio management aspects in finance? How can we finance it better? How the investments work in a better way, or why investments fail? So you can, and I can understand, right? So every different management areas, there are different variations, right, in society. So why these variations are there? So that is the why question. That actually is a puzzling question, and then we go about investigating that. So in a nutshell, that is what I can say for now for the audience. Yeah.
Wonderful. So it all starts with why, and you perfectly put it. It is like solving a puzzle or identifying a problem and going ahead with performing your research.
Yeah, there is no end to social problems. I mean, there is so many contexts, so many times are changing. Human behavior is so complex. So my guide always used to tell me, Professor Ray, that there is no dearth of social problems even in management. I mean, it's always find a problem, and so finding that solution or the investing that is a little bit challenging in management research, because the laboratory is basically society, right? And it's not that you can do any controlled experiment like in a physics or chemistry lab. It's difficult to have an experiment with human beings or corporates, right? You have to observe from outside mostly. So that is the difference. Yeah. Please go ahead.
Absolutely. I think this is something very well put through. You have given some basic idea around management information systems, followed by marketing topics, and then strategic management, finance, and all. So this is something, a kind of probably I would say you have provided a thread, okay, wherein people can go ahead and start exploring it. And now I would like to ask you another question, again related to the current one. What are some of the trending research topics? And the reason why I'm so curious about trending research topics is the landscape of the business is changing very dynamically, as you have noticed in the last 2 to 3 years.
Absolutely.
And it is going to further change in the upcoming 3 to 5 years and all, right? Because earlier business landscape used to change every 5 to 10 years. Now it has shrunk to 1 to 2 years, or maybe less than that. Because when I worked for General Electric, we used to call 5 to 10 years as long term. And probably 6 months to 2 years is a short term. Yeah. But now 6 months to 2 years has become long term.
Long term, yes.
What are some of your insights in terms of what are the trending research topics which audience can explore if they are interested?
Let me start with what I am looking at right now, because I am also did a PhD in a very trending topic, which is sustainability. So more and more the corporations followed growth path or profitability. We see that the society as a whole is not gaining much. So this all capitalism in the US and the 30 years, 40 years of growth, what we see that the environment is degrading, right? The inequality is increasing. So if you look at these sustainability development goals by the UN, there are 17 goals, right? So those are now becoming more and more prominent in management research, that how to become more sustainable corporation, right? How corporations can be more environmentally beneficial, socially beneficial. So one very particular topic about sustainability is climate change. So all of us know about climate change, but you will notice that most of the discussions about climate change is mostly on the scientific front, that the physics or the chemistry or the biology of climate change, right? So those scientists and the natural scientists are very aggressive and understanding climate change from a natural science perspective. But we'll also understand that climate change is pretty much a social problem. And if we think closely that one of the major problems of climate change comes from the corporates themselves, that so much industrialization happened, right? And this carbon emission, etc. That is a major cause of climate change. Now, what is happening, these regulations or the normative forces, by normative I mean the institutional forces, right, that you have to follow these environmental guidelines coming from different nations, or there is some Greenpeace kind of this revolution, right? So that a lot of NGOs are putting pressure on corporations. So this whole issue of climate change, how corporations are dealing with that. So that's a very trending topic. So again, my own thesis on how farms in India respond to climate change, right? It's in a very nascent stage, but it's going to be a topic for next 1, 2, 3 decades, I believe, because like pandemic we feel now, climate change is going to be a next kind of disaster if we don't handle it well. So how corporations are responding to that, observing them, right? Who is doing better, who is not doing good? Because if we don't address climate change right now from a private perspective, governments are doing their bit, of course, but from a private enterprise perspective, if they are not addressing or understanding climate change, then what will happen? Suddenly, you'll find that government is putting some regulations, and then suddenly your farm will find itself in a very disaster stage that will not allow to do business if you are doing it the way you are doing it now. So climate change is a very important trending topic, you can say. And other part of sustainability can be water reservation, water preservation, how companies are using wastes like waste management, etc. So these are sustainability part. Another important thing, because since you are also from IT background, you will understand that the AI, artificial intelligence. So it's a MIS topic, you can say, but in strategy also it's coming more and more because whether people will be taking decisions the same way that they are taking it now, because artificial intelligence is coming very powerfully, right, very fast. If you hear Elon Musk or the tech gurus or the Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg, so they are also very gung-ho or very upbeat about AI, artificial intelligence, but whether it will replace human decision making, because in strategy the crux of strategy is decision making, right? So the CEO is making a decision at the top of the firm, an entrepreneur is making a decision. Will it be completely replaced by AI? Like all the decision made by data crunching or data science, etc. Or again, it's my own question also. Is there something in decision making that will still will be driven by emotions? So that's a very interesting trending topic that anyone can pursue, that how much of the decision making is going to be done by just data based, or how much it still will be human emotions, human intelligence, or something that AI cannot capture in next 2-3 decades. It will take maybe 100-200 years. That will still be human decisions, right? And many of the social sciences are very context specific. So if you just traverse through time, what is changing now? So just focus on what is changing now. What is the current context? You'll find a research question. For example, the pandemic happened, right? So because of the pandemic, a lot of work is now work from home. So how the organizations are changing themselves, because the same definition of organization that you go to an office, it's a very important area, all are co-located in the same building. It's not going to be in the next decade, right? The already companies are talking about work from remotely, right? So virtual reality is also coming, virtual reality, etc. So how this changing? The organizing is changing. That is another important question. So these are the questions any new researcher can look at.
Wow. You have covered a gamut of topics, right from environment, sustainability, and dealing with climate changes and all. And I would like to add my 2 cents here. If we consider the way automobile industry is shaping up, right?
Yeah.
Earlier, we were relying more on these petrol, diesel kind of things. And now there is a lot of push, from the government saying that we need to encourage these electric vehicles and all. And the other day, we interviewed one of the startup founders. They are aggressively moving, in terms of building a car, which is under $10,000 and which has to give minimum 500 to 600 kilometers of mileage with a single charge kind of thing. I think, as you rightly mentioned, in case if we cannot control, especially the private sector cannot control, and if we are not diligent enough to preserve the climate, again, the future is very gloomy. Because as we speak, right, the climatic conditions are changing very rapidly. Again, the same person, what he said is due to the pandemic, they were able to see the blue skies. And once the lockdown is lifted, again, the sky has turned into gray kind of thing.
Yes.
So definitely, I think that's a very good research area. And in addition to that, you touched also about the management information systems or the IT related topics. Thank you for sharing your insights. And now let me talk about your journey as an assistant professor. Like, how does a day in a life of an assistant professor at IIM look like?
Yeah, so that is what I aspired for, and I'm really glad that I am enjoying this life. Yeah, as you asked me that what is the day like. So basically, I stay on campus. Okay, in Raipur, I am Raipur stay on campus. And that is one of the big positives of being in an academy is that you don't have to go through trains or buses or even drive through hustle and bustles of the city, right? So that exhausting lot. So I just work for 5 minutes to come to my office, and right now I'm sitting in my office. Our office times are 9:30 to 6. Okay, that's the office time. So whenever we have classes, again, not every day I have classes. So whenever I have classes, I take the classes like online. Right now it's online. But when it opens up, I have to go to this academic block and take those classes. So maybe one or two classes you can say per day, not more. Again, as I said, not every day is classes. Weekends are off, okay. But one thing is about academic is that it's not very focused on one particular work. So, for example, in engineering, when you work on a team, we always focused on a particular project, right? But here, I have very diverse kind of work. So, for example, taking classes is one thing that is people think about teaching, but there are a lot of off the class work. So for example, preparation for the class, right? So whenever I'm free, I have to prepare for the next class. I have to read a lot. Then I have to do my own research. So the free time I invest in some research. So for example, reading the literature. Literature means the papers, and then writing about those, and then analyzing the data, etc., etc. Then meetings. Okay. So in academics, there are a lot of committees. So running an academic institution. So again, it's a new experience for me that as a student, we only see the professors or teachers coming and taking the classes, but of the class, they run a lot. I mean, they manage a lot about the academic institution, like admissions, right? So again, this weekend, as I said, that I have to take some interviews. So the admission process is there. Then student queries. So many students come up with their queries on and off the class, resolving their queries. Then the meetings about the committees. So there are many committees in an institution. Like, for example, there's a PhD committee. There can be an anti-ragging committee. There can be a admissions committee. So those different committees I'm participated into different times. So the committee meetings happen. So attending those meetings, taking decisions. So you can understand that this is how a small organization runs. So it's very entrepreneurial. So I must say that being in academics is very entrepreneurial. So that I enjoy a lot. And then also being with the family. So that I also wanted, as a career that so my time should be have a good work-life balance, right? So my kid and my wife stays with me on my campus. My parents visited recently. I go back to my family in the evening. So that was not possible when I was an engineer. So I sometimes reached home at say 8, 9, 10 p.m. At night, giving time to the family. So this is the environment and the day you can say for me in campus.
I envy on you actually.
I mean, yeah, I mean, every person has their own aspiration and own style of living. So I enjoy a lot. So
No, absolutely. Because typically IIM campuses are very huge,
yes,
lush green, and you have specific timings. And in addition to that, as you said, every day is like an entrepreneurship. Like
yes,
you're part of various committees and you do a lot of research and all. And
yes.
especially one thing, what is so appealing for me is if you are a teacher, right, you are
Mm,
able to influence lives of many people. Okay.
mm,
And
mm,
that's something very noble profession.
mm.
Right. Wonderful. So those were some great insights. And now I switch to my next question, Shantanam. What are your tips for those planning to pursue teaching as a profession?
Okay, that's a very good question. Yes. So, in a nutshell, I'd say that teaching is about gathering knowledge first. So, you are responsible to get information from different sources and build a knowledge base, right? And then communicating it. So, one part of it is, of course, gathering the knowledge, okay, assimilating it, and then you have to be a very good communicator so that it doesn't distort when you're telling your students, right? So, if you have two skills, like you want to learn a lot from the environment. I mean, any, not only books. Now there are so many information media, right? Social media, YouTube. You get knowledge from different news channels like television, etc. Books are of course there, right? So much of information there in the around you, but you have to know like how to distill the information, how to make knowledge out of the information. So information and knowledge is different, right? So there are a lot of fake news are there. So you'll be very able to understand what is right, what is wrong. And then when you assimilate the knowledge, you have to have the ability to communicate to the other person. So it may not be your student, but if you can understand that in your family that you are able to convince or pursue your mother or father or wife about something, that means you are a good teacher. So when you feel that you are a good teacher, then of course it's a good right fit for you to come to academics, right? So that way you can understand that you will be a good teacher or not. I felt that myself because when I was in TCS, I remember I did my PMP, right? So project management professional, that certification. And then that was my first teaching job, you can say. I took a session for the TCS managers and who are actually senior to me at that time for their preparation for this PMP certification. And while I doing the session, I understood that I enjoyed it a lot. That when I make them understand that some concept or some theory about this project management, and when they appreciate that, that was the time of that fulfillness. So that kind of fulfillment you have in your life in any moment, and you feel that you are feeling good, that means you are a born teacher, that you will be good as teacher. And second thing is that expect moderate income. I mean, never come to academic profession thinking that we'll earn a lot of money, huge crores of salaries. That is not going to happen. I mean, that is granted in a country like India. Of course, there are very superstar teachers who can do a lot of consultancy and a lot of books if you write. Those are very small percentage, but on an average, you would say that it will be your income will be less than the average corporate income. That is given. So if you are good with that, and if you can at least be comfortable that okay, I don't need to run after money, then again that's a good mindset that you will have as a teacher, right? But of course, as I said, you have a balanced life, so your work life balance will be better. You have diverse interest areas you can work upon, and there is independence. So as I can say that you don't have big boss like in an organization, right? So you can independently, more or less independently, you can work on a research topic. As you said, that you can influence a person directly. So when you're talking to a student, if you can influence a person, you can feel that joy that when somebody understands the concept. And third thing, I will say that there is an opportunity at every level. So never consider that you have to be a teacher at IITs or IIMs or any very big university. So I personally feel that teacher is valuable at every level. So even at a village, a primary school teacher is as valuable as a teacher at say IIT or IIM. So I should say that never think about that you are as a teacher, you have to be in a very high study or in a very prominent institution, premier institution in India. I feel that as a teacher, you are as valuable as if you are teaching school kids. Even I feel it's more valuable if you can shape the young minds, in a primary education. So if you are feeling that you have this ability or have this zeal for teaching, I feel that you have every opportunity to go and take the plunge. I mean, at every level. That's my small tips.
No, this was a lot of tips actually. Like, I really loved all the thoughts that you have shared here. You are responsible for gathering the knowledge and building a knowledge base. And at the same time, you should have the ability to communicate with the students and convert that information, validate that information, which becomes a very critical part, because we are in the era of infodemic, wherein everybody is putting in something, but how genuine something is, right?
Yes.
And you also touched upon moderate income levels. But most important aspect is the influence that we are going to exert on people. And thank you so much for sharing all those amazing insights. Shantanu, this conversation has been very, very wonderful so far. And let's add some spice to the episode. I would like to ask you a few interesting rapid fire questions with your consent. Are you ready?
Oh my. Yeah, okay, let's see.
Okay, let me quickly fire my very first bullet out of the rapid fire. What is your favorite movie dialogue?
Movie dialogue. Okay. Whenever I think about movie dialogue, one dialogue comes to my mind. It may not be my favorite. It's just "Kitne aadmi the." I mean, that's quintessential Sholay dialogue, right? I mean, maybe that was played so much time in my childhood. But yeah, that's not my favorite. That comes just naturally. Okay, I have a dialogue which is a little bit emotional. Again, it connects to my current understanding of life. So I have again a very small kid, okay, 2.5-year-old boy, son. And this dialogue is from a movie called Opur Songshar. So it's basically a Bengali movie. It's basically Opur trilogy you've heard about, right? Opur trilogy by Satyajit Ray. So it's the third part of the Opur trilogy series, okay? The third movie, Opur Songshar is the Bengali name. And so towards the end, okay, almost the end scene of this movie is basically a relationship between a father and a son. And that boy is, I think, 3-4 years old in the movie. And that wife of that protagonist who actually died in the childbirth. So from that point, that father and the son didn't have a good relationship. So the father actually abandoned the son, another relative, and actually went for some travel and etc. So he was so dismayed and for the tragic death of his wife. But when they met again, so again you understand that the father has this emotional connect with the son, and they met. But the son didn't knew that father very well because he had never seen, right? So he's just born and brought up in the maternal uncle's home. And when that last scene happened, the son is asking that, who are you? who are you? That asking the father. Okay. And that father responded, I mean, it's very emotional response is basically, he didn't tell that I'm your father. He told that I'm your friend. So I'm your friend. While listening to that, it's basically a Bengali dialogue that Tumi Ke, and he says, Ami tomar bondhu. Okay. It's, whoever is in Bengali, your audience will understand that. And then that boy actually came and, and went with this person, with the father. So as a very small kid, they always look for friends. They don't understand who is father, who is mother, who is uncles or aunts. They want a playful friend, right? So as I play with my boy, every day, I can very much relate to this dialogue. That is one of my favorite right now. You can say that the father is telling the little kid that I am your friend. Okay, so that is very important.
Quite interesting. Yeah, in fact, today's generation, we have to be very friendly, right?
Yes.
Because the patience levels of the kids are very low at this moment.
Wonderful. And because of this pandemic, I mean, they actually are they don't find this kind of other friends in the same age outside. So I would say that the parents or whoever is inside the home has to be like the kid, has to be their friend. Otherwise, the socialization will not happen well.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. So with that, let me move on to my next question. What is your favorite failure, Shantanu?
Wow, that's a difficult question. Favorite failure. Basically, I'm a very optimistic person, so I don't see anything as a failure as such. And this is a difficult question actually to find a failure. One thing I can say that I wanted to write a blog. I mean, blog of poems, and it's still there on the website. But once I was very passionate about writing small poems or stories, etc. So I wanted to write a blog, but it happened only for I think couple of years, and then it died down. So you can say that that is a failed project for me. But why is it favorite? Why I'm saying that, because I still have this energy, or this I preserve this energy to come to and in a blogging or writing something, maybe writing a book. So this habit of writing, it's only right now it's only about this project or research. But writing something which is outside my strategic management or management research is something I'm passionate about and probably will do later. So that's a failure, but that's still, I'll say that the energy is still preserved. So that's the favorite part.
Quite interesting. Okay, let me move on to my next one. Which movie character do you imagine yourself with or resembles you the most?
Oh. Okay, so a lot of questions about movies. So yeah, I mean, I personally feel most, I resemble with the movie of Swadesh. Have you seen Swadesh, Shah Rukh Khan?
Yes, yeah.
He was in NASA and then comes back to his village and do something. So I connect to that character. I don't remember the name of the character, but the Shah Rukh's character in Swadesh. Reason is basically, I feel that being locally rooted is very important. I mean, we talk about globalization, we talk about reaching out to best of the world, right? Going for a higher education to US. So I have been to US, but I always felt connected to my motherland. Even right now I'm in Raipur, but I still feel connected to Calcutta. So I mean, going to the roots. I mean, that location, that where you're born and brought up, valuing that even if I've seen the whole world, but finding an impact at the root level, at the local level is important to me. So I kind of connect to that character, I can say.
That's quite interesting, actually. Very, very interesting. All right, so let me move on to my next question. What has been a question on your mind which you never got an answer for?
Okay. So it is kind of a historical question, you can say that, and it will never get answered because there is a famous author and a poet, you can say, and a genius in Bengal whose name is Sukumar Rai. Have you heard of this name?
No,
Sukumar
I haven't.
Rai, you can research him. So Sukumar Rai is the father of Satyajit Ray. Satyajit Ray, you all know, right? That famous Bengali film director.
Yeah.
Satyajit Ray, you all know, but he was the father of Satyajit Ray, Sukumar Ray. And they are from a progressive family. At that time in Bengal, the Ray family was very progressive. And unfortunately, I mean, he died at the age of 36. So there was a disease that was no cure of that. So he died at the age of 36. But within that much life, what he did for Bengali literature is unimaginable. I mean, any kid or any child will have to read his work. So sense of humor, his sense of comedy or writing enriches every child in Bengal. So that kind of artist he was, and he was a very good comic also. He was, I can say that kind of literature he created for Bengal is very unique. It's very difficult to create literature for children. So what the question is that if he would have lived so for another 15, 20 years, 30 years, right, like a normal person, what would have he created? what would have been the creation from him? So that is a very big question, and it will never get answered, because in a small poem he has created characters. Can you imagine? So every poem of his is a character. In anybody, no, in your audience who is in Bengali will understand that what I'm talking about. That the genius of Sukumar Rai, who left us at the age of 36, how enriched the Bengali literature will have been if he was alive for another, say, decade or so.
Wow. Thanks. I think I'm going to perform research on that topic further. Okay, last one for the rapid fire, Shantanu. What is one message that you would like to give to your own younger version?
It's easy. That basically read more. I mean, beyond textbooks. So, I mean, as a younger child, I was diligent and attentive to studies. But I feel that I missed some more reading about outside the textbook, like the stories or the novels or maybe history, right? History from different, not textbook history, but history and those kind of. So I feel that enriches a child or the upbringing a lot. I mean, I'm now understanding that I'm trying to read as much, but once you have this habit from childhood, that actually gives a lot of knowledge, lot of wisdom that you value in your later life. So I would say that collect more books outside textbooks and read.
That's a wonderful tip, in fact. Yeah. All right, so that was a fantastic rapid fire round, and in fact, I got to learn a lot of details, a lot of new stuff to learn, so on and so forth. So thank you so much for sharing those details. So with that, let me come back to the very final question for today's conversation. What will be your one piece of advice to those aspiring to make big in their careers?
Okay, make big in the career. I would say that never measure success in one dimension. I mean, what I understand at this stage of my life, that don't measure success just in terms of money, in terms of fame, in terms of, say, degrees, not one dimension. I would say that keep multiple dimensions of success. So, for example, no, if you are not making so much money, but at least look at how much impact you are doing in society, right? Like as a teaching career, as I said, that you will not make the very huge amount of money, but you can really understand that how much impact you make to a students, to other parts of the society in life. Then, of course, if you are, say, doing, for example, if you are just an engineer, don't just think about, again, I would say that always think about how you are impacting the society, what is the purpose. So as an IT engineer, now I understand that a lot of impact, because this pandemic happened, that it's not about only doctors or police. They always on the front end and get that admiration. But think about these engineers, that because of these engineers, we are now communicating, we are now having a very natural life. All these physical constants are being fulfilled by this digital world, right? And who are in the back end? The engineers. So feel good about it. So I will say that always having a very all-around success of your life, have a different perspective, be optimistic, and then you'll be successful. So never having a unidimensional success route. So, and when you think little bit on your current position, try to feel good about it. And once you feel good, then you will have the ability to progress. Don't get frustrated about your situation or position. Otherwise, you'll never make it big. That is my understanding. That be optimistic.
That was mind-blowing set of tips, actually. Yeah, we have to focus on things which are very important to the society, and what is the impact that we are going to make, right? Amazing.
Yes. Focus on positives, I should say. Yeah. Wherever you are, focus on positives, so you will gradually become bigger. I'd say.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shantanu. It was a very wonderful and amazing conversation. Thanks for being part of TGV. And it was also a great topic that you have covered about management research and teaching as a career. And it was pleasure hosting you. Thank you so much for being part of TGV's journey in shaping the lives and careers of millions across the globe.
Thank you, Naveen. Anytime. I mean, it's my pleasure too. And any of your audience want to reach out to me, I mean, you can always, of course, it's a lot of broad discussions we did, but any particular help or mentoring about coming to management research or teaching, I am always there. And my LinkedIn profile, you already know, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. So LinkedIn profile is available in the show notes. So for those of you who are interested to contact Dr. Shantanu, please go ahead and connect with him. All right. So with that, let's move on to the trivia segment of today's episode. And folks, today's trivia is about music players. And here comes my question. What did Ford Motor Company introduce as a custom audio option way back in 1965? I know you are thinking, by the time we didn't have CDs or DVDs, it was a 8-track tape players. Interesting, isn't it? Thank you so much for listening. There is more in store, folks. Stay tuned. Take care. Be safe. Until next time, bye bye. And we are signing off for today. See you all in the next episode with another wonderful guest.